Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube show, and specifically our series on the Japanese black pine trees. With me today is about the closest you're going to get, in California anyway, to a collected specimen. This particular tree was originally grown as a patio shrub by someone who did bonsais but didn't really shape this particular tree, and during the time that it was being grown in a tub on his patio it developed this very thick and heavily barked lower trunk. Unfortunately, it had no shape. It simply had a bunch of upper branches growing every which way. So about a year and a half ago, when I acquired it, the first thing I did was I took off branches that didn't matter to the design here, and also here on the back of the tree, and then chose one well-shaped upper branch here to really commence the design of the tree. This tree has just emerged from dormancy a little bit earlier than my other black pine trees have, so this is the time when we're going to do some heavy pruning on it and continue the creation work of making it into a bonsai. So let's get started on that. Now first we have a scar that needs to be resolved where we took off a large branch a year ago and we left a stub, so we have to kind of work that down a little bit until it's flush with the trunk or concave. And this is a really good time of year to do that because it's going to have the whole growing season to heal. So we've left that like that. And now we'll go around to this first branch, and the biggest problem with this branch was it was very leggy, had no inner foliage. It was even worse than this when we first started. Now the way to get it to bud foliage farther in is to selectively prune back the outer branches without going too far. If you take off too much, it dies back and you get a dead stub like this one. So first let's clean off this stub here. And then we'll come around here and we have this branch here. We're going to go back to this growth here. Now it's real important on pines that you not cut back to bare wood. You have to leave some greenery, because if you cut back to bare wood it'll die back like that stub that I just showed you. Now with these heavily growing tips, we can just take these back down. And we're actually going back to last year's needles in some places. Then in other places we'll just take off the new growth, the candle, and what will happen is we'll get another flush of new growth out of the centers of the existing needles. Now I just want to think a little bit about this. This is still a little too much growth here. So we're going to actually take this back even farther now that I look at it. And then we may come back to that later in the season and see what we can do. Now here, this branch doesn't have a huge amount of growth on it, so we're just going to engage in some heavy thinning. And we'll actually pull some of the old needles here and just sort of clean that up. Okay, this first branch is about as good as we can get it at this point. So now we're going to move on to upper branches. And we'll just pull some of the longer, older needles. Now this branch we can't reduce quite as much because again, it doesn't have a lot of growth to begin with. So we're just going to, okay, and that's cleaned up that branch there. Now this front branch, on the other hand, is growing way too vigorously. So we're going to take off all of this growth. And then this one, we don't have quite so many needles, so we're just going to take off the candles here. And we're going to thin it down. We're thinning out the needle growth here from last year, and we've done most of the tree. Well, what we're going to do now is continue taking off buds that are too powerful. The whole idea with black pines is to direct growth where you want it, and the way you do that is by selectively removing buds and plucking out needles. It's not like working on junipers or certain other trees where you can just cut away everything that doesn't look like a bonsai. With a pine, you have to really plan where you want the growth, and you have to direct it. And that's what the purpose of this work is. So overly long buds like this one have to come off. Now I'm sure some people are going to say, aren't those little pine cones at the top? Well, yes they are, and they'd be beautiful and make it look all Christmassy if we allowed them to grow. But what they do is they suck energy away from putting new foliage on the tree. And on a bonsai where you're growing for structure, the pine cones have to go. So we're just going to work through the top of the tree here, keep thinning out growth. Now, some of these needles are overly long, but needle reduction is yet another phase of black pine development that this tree is not ready for yet. Now, at this point, we're just about finished with our pruning work on the tree. We're very close to the end here. So we're just going to pluck off a few more needles here and there and finish our spring cleaning of the tree. And then we'll do a little bit of wiring and either tack that to the end of this video or show it in a separate video. Okay, this is the foliage mass here that we removed from the tree. And this is what the tree looks like now that it's been thinned out for this year's development. Thank you for watching, folks. This is the tree at the end of today's work session. We've pruned it, cleaned it, and wired just about every branch on it. This is not a show wiring. This is a temporary wiring that's good for one growing season only. And it's taken about 2 to 3 hours to do this wiring job such as it is. There are certain things we've done with the wiring really to accommodate growth and to expedite the wiring process that we wouldn't have done if we were wiring for appearance. But the tree looks far, far better than it did when we started the work on it. And we'll just rotate it around and show it to you from all sides. There are still lots of imperfections. There's bar branches that need to be resolved in the future, and the pot is actually a bit oversized. But for this work session today, the tree's made tremendous progress. In terms of future development, what I expect is through this growing season, a lot of these branches are going to thicken up significantly, and this wiring is probably going to have to be removed sometime in June or July, and perhaps we'll do a follow-up video at that time. Thank you for watching, folks.